Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. I really appreciate it. I'm Andrew Dubber. I'm the director of MTF Labs. I'm also a senior researcher at the Industry Commons Foundation. We're here to talk about models for ecosystemic innovation, particularly for regions, cities, local places, and so on. And it's partly to do with, as part of the DigiNeb project that Frank discussed earlier, we are preparing for, we're soft launching today, but preparing for the launch of the handbook for ecosystemic regional innovation. And there are a couple of reasons why we're doing this here. One of which is because of the talent that we have at our disposal here. One of which is because that we are in a European capital of innovation right now, and so we want to know what the lessons that can be learned from that might be. So I have joining me on the panel, we have Lena Miranda, CEO of Linköping Science Park, Jan Orman, who is many things, but I'm going to go with curator as the main title.
That's okay.
That's okay. But also the author of the prototype for the handbook for ecosystemic regional innovation, which we'll talk a little bit about. We have Michaela Magas here, who is the chair and director of research for the Industry Commons Foundation, but also a member of President von der Leyen's high-level roundtable for the new European Bauhaus. And we have with us Laura Hagemann Ariano. Have I said that close to correct? Excellent.
Yes.
Who is joining us from the Joint Research Councils and from
Joint Research Centre.
Joint Research Centres. I'm sorry, and also going to be talking to us about the regions and how the regions are dealing with us at the European level. But Jan, I'd like to start with you if I can.
Maybe.
Because one of the things that has been instrumental in all of this, and a lot of the things that we're sort of working towards in the DigiNeb project, but also in the handbook, is this idea of grassroots projects and things that come out of the regions or out of small places. And I thought you might want to start with some background, perhaps about what happened in Duved and what that project was about, and where this sort of story started for your interaction with us.
Yes, I mean this handbook or prototype for a handbook. It's called a prototype because it's basically something that I think needs to always be a prototype. So even if it was meant to make other prototypes of handbooks from this. And anyway, it started with me working 5 years for a little village in Jämtland in the north of Sweden, and it was. I said no to the beginning, and then I discovered that, wow, through this development, I can find all the answers that I've been looking for, like for 20 years, of larger cities. So it's not about like the small places. It's about using and have the opportunity and possibility to work from the small places, like a village or something. To from that make learnings that could be applicable for a larger city. And that was the main reason for this. So what we did later on for like Umeå, which is called Norrlandsmodellen, the model of the north, based on the city of Umeå, was to make the same kind of strategy, maybe, for the different boroughs or the different neighborhoods in the city, and that was really possible. And I mean now it's used for large corporations like IKEA or H&M and things like that. So it's really been a very sort of used little handbook. Does that answer your or may it start?
It certainly goes some way to answer my questions. I have more questions, and we will come back to that. But maybe this is a point where Michaela can come in, because Michaela, you spent the last couple of years working on the development of the new European Bauhaus, also 4 years. Okay, but intersecting with projects like Duved and the Norrlandsmodellen, and you've had this history with it. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that journey and how that got us to where we are now?
So, as I say, there are initiatives that have always been there that the European Bauhaus wanted to collect and learn from And Jan hasn't really told us in great detail what he did in Duved, but Duved was way before we launched the New European Bauhaus initiative. So people have been aware of the potential to innovate with communities in the regions for, of course, a very long time. And Sweden has a very long tradition of these types of collaborations that we can learn from. And so Duved was particularly notable because Jan systematized this process. So some processes have always existed in Sweden, right?
Yeah. Maybe I should say something.
Then you should. Yes, you have been asked. But this is, I think, why Andrew asked you.
Yeah, but I mean, my very simple observation was that if you look upon a little village, and Duved is like it's very sort of, it has clear boundaries. It's very small. It has very top citizens that were engaged and also on quite a high level in the education zone. So I just said that, okay, we have huge problems in the world regarding pollution, regarding climate, regarding this and that, and not least of democracy. So by just looking at this smaller place and saying that, okay, can we engage the people that live there? Yes, we can. Can we create a system of, let's say, infrastructure, mobility, transports that could be smarter than what's usual? And I discovered that, for instance, the small grocery store had 12 transports a day, 12 trucks a day to this little village that then had 700 people. It's not very sustainable. So then we could solve that. Could we make a local food system? Yeah, we could do that. We actually could, and we started, and we came quite far in the sense that we could have local produce made and grown in Duved, but also in the surroundings. We could have a farmer that did most of the meat. We could have and that was being developed. And I just discovered that this, if you take that, okay, how do we make food? How do we make a sustainable idea of future democracy? How do we make a sustainable model of anything that regards our society? You can do that, and you can find models from the idea of the village. And then you take that to the city. Right now, for instance, I'm working on Hammarby Sjöstad, just south. Quite a dense urban area. You have a little music project there.
Nobody's touching anything. It's a weird feedback.
It's completely fine. And I mean, it's a different story. And suddenly, where I looked upon like every citizen in a very sort of more classical democracy model. If you go to Hammarby Sjöstad, you suddenly work with the bostadsrättsföreningar, the owners of the apartments that have associations of their own. So that's another model that I didn't think of in Duved. And so it gets evolved, and it differs depending on where you go. But it's basically, the very basic idea is that you can do things very driven in a smaller society. Also discovered, which is important, because we're sitting here with you and with the beautiful system of knowledge and research and science in Linköping. And what I discovered was something that we could actually use the little village of Duved, even in that way, of generating knowledge and research. So I called it campus without university, which meant that, I mean, since it wasn't that expensive to the land is less expensive than in Linköping or in Stockholm or so on, or in Umeå, which meant that we could. Does it sound now?
Yeah.
Okay. So we could start projects that were like prototyping what's needed. We could do houses in wood and other material that would be like testing the future of future. We could also try different business models of doing it. We could try different sort of governance models of doing things. And suddenly you had things that were like, wow. And so I invited Sara Thor, this fantastic, one of the heads of the School of Architecture in Umeå. And so they did a studio in Duved, and which was one of the most successful studios ever in the School of Architecture in Umeå, because they got very clear ideas from us that we need answers to that. We need answers to this, and it was all about like, how do we generate food for that in a sustainable way for a village, and so and then they had their graduate students coming. It was during the pandemic, so they weren't all there all the time, but it turned out to be extremely useful. I mean, it's food for thoughts for not just Duved, but for everyone for years and years to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
And food for thought for Duved, of course, and for future handbooks.
Right.
Yeah.
So shall I, Michaela? Can I just get you? And I know this is, I think, where you're going with this.
So of course we have other
bridge,
wonderful,
exactly.
yeah,
To bridge to
absolutely, other
Laura,
wonderful
because
speakers.
where you brought that.
That's right.
to
Yes. So
takes us to Laura very well.
It does actually, because it's very strongly linked. So I was honored to be on the advisors of the Visions in the North project, which was the Swedish national European Bauhaus initiative, and that Jan then brought his experience to. And very notably, as he has just described, he was able to scale the principles. And I witnessed that this is something that is scalable, that could then, of course, scale to. We should at least attempt or test how something like this can scale, or how something like this can inform other regions in Europe. And at that time, we were developing the European Bauhaus sorry, we seem to have constant interference. Yeah, there's nothing we can do, I think. But we were at that point looking at. We started to discuss, so I started to discuss with the Committee of the Regions, the idea of doing 100 labs across 100 European regions that would test some of these principles. Of course, Jan has demonstrated how this works at this scale and in this country. There are other people around Europe who are also doing very, very interesting things, and a lot of those have been developed through the NEB, the European Bauhaus lighthouse projects, which are working very closely with regional governments and with neighborhoods. So the models have increased, whether influenced by Jan, who was invited to speak about this with Commissioner Ferreira on 2 years ago or something like that, yeah, or through other really, really important methods that people have developed. And so this kick-started a process. Of course, there is a process one has to go through in the European Commission and with Parliament in terms of creating a legal mechanism that can deliver this. Mm-hmm. And this is where I would really like Laura to update us of where this project is now, because a lot has happened since it has grown. So Laura, I don't know if Andrew wants to.
You've just said what I was going to say, which Laura, because you're taking this the next step, and you can update us on the progress. Is what's happened? What has become of the 100 labs for 100 regions?
Yes. Now I'm I am muted myself. So yes, as you were saying, we were suggested, we were commanded by the Parliament with the support of the Committee of the Regions on the conceptualization of these pilot projects. The initial idea was also to tackle the needs of grassroots projects that wanted to adopt the values and principles that were coming from small places, because this type of innovation is coming from everywhere. We see a lot of remote areas and small project promoters that want to be part of innovative approaches, that want to embrace the European Bauhaus, and it's the only way to have really the link to the community and to the grassroots. The challenge also addressed was that there's a kind of lack of access for these projects to public and private financing, and the possibility to start an innovative path, for these actors that are otherwise not compelled to be part of this. So we wanted to stimulate and support local and regional NEP projects, and facilitating this access, especially for small project promoters. What we then tried to do this is through two actions. This was given already a little bit like by the Parliament and the Committee of the Regions. One was the creation of a NEP Innovative Funding Advisory Hub, and the other one was this organization of a scheme to reward NEP project proposals from small municipalities. This was the 100 Labs idea. So the support to these project proposals from small municipalities will be done through the 2025 European Bauhaus Prizes edition, which is now going to include 20 prizes for grassroots initiatives led by small municipalities across EU member states. And the idea is to recognize initiatives that are promoting the NEP core values and principles and serving to the green digital transitions and that are coming from small municipalities. So the idea, instead of going towards maybe giving vouchers or any other type of a scheme, will more be, this type of recognition that then we hope that these municipalities use to bring their projects further. So the initiatives will be submitted by small municipalities. They have to integrate the three NEP core values. You know them very well, the working principles, and positively impact the built environment, so that we are working also on the same area as the NEP facility that is going to be researching on this type of topics, and that is at the scale of neighborhoods as well. And the winners of the prizes will get 30,000 euro to bring their proposals further. But as we know that 30,000 euro is not a lot, besides that, of course, the recognition goes beyond the prize, not the monetary prize. Then we will complement with the advisory hub for innovative NEP projects, where they will be able to go, and it will act as a marketplace between good projects, good NEP projects, and private and public funding and organizations. So this
Laura,
is a little bit in the
may I
nutshell where the project is right now. And regarding the prices, they will be announced as soon as in the month of November, with all the necessary details that now I don't have myself, because they need to be rubricated by our new hierarchy as well.
Sure. Laura, may I ask, just very quickly, what is a small municipality?
Well, this is not yet has not yet been decided, but we define a small, in this case, around 20,000 inhabitants. Also because from 20,000 inhabitants onwards, in my experience, I've been working with municipalities already now the last 15 years. From 20,000, municipalities are able to access to other sources of financing, European and beyond, and they can participate in many calls for proposals and calls for tenders that smaller municipalities cannot. So beyond the administrative capacity needed to develop the projects, which we believe that some of them they do have, but what they don't have sometimes is access to the knowledge on where are the sources of funding beyond what their own sources or the regional sources.
Understood. Lena, I know that Linköping is not quite that small, but Linköping is not the biggest city in Sweden. It's possibly not even the biggest Köping in Sweden. But it is a European capital of innovation. How is it in what way? What were the things that you focused on to be a sort of a innovative champion in that way?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I would say, like Linköping, I think it's the biggest shopping. We are 165,000 people living in Linköping. And we decided to apply for the Innovative Capital, the Rising City of Europe, actually 4 or 5 years ago. So it's been a long process for us to understand the competition and how we should go about to apply. And what we did was that we started off by mapping all the good initiatives being done within the municipality, actually going from operation to operation, looking into every part of the municipality to understand innovative solutions for each and every area that the municipality is working with. So we didn't start off in the science park where we have the tech and the digitalization, but we started in the actual operation. And I think this is one of the biggest wins for us, to really get a chance to understand the municipality and the innovative capacity that the organization holds. And that does not have to be the most techy or digitalized solutions, but it can be new ways of doing things, new ways of working, a new way of organizing things. And then, of course, we looked at the science park and we looked at the cooperation with the university and what's happening in the intersections with the business community. And then it gets also very interesting. And when we mapped all this together, we could see that we were innovative in many different ways. And I think it brought such a pride to all the employees of Linköping and all the citizens of Linköping, because it's the prize of everyone. So I would say, like, doing the process was the big win. And then, of course, it was fantastic getting the award.
Okay.
But it also helped us to understand, because before we didn't talk really about innovation in the municipality. We talked about how can we improve things, how can we give better quality, how can we do things more efficiently, how can we optimize, but we didn't really talk about innovation. But now that we have been appointed the most innovative city in Europe, now we have to work with innovation even in the municipality. So that's also very good.
I think that something that you said in there that I find really interesting is the distinction between digital innovation and social innovation. And I think that it seems like where the real power is, and Jan, I want to come back to you on this too, because what you were talking about very much was about social innovation. But there were digital tools or technological tools or systemic tools that you apply in order to enable social innovation. Do you want to talk a little bit about the tools for innovation?
Well, let's say like this, that I mean, right now I'm working with a couple of very, very large global corporations. And the thing is that they face the same problem. Those sort of centralized models of industrialism, where the Bauhaus was like a fantastic way of because the creatives came with the solutions. And the new European Bauhaus, I think, could be. Maybe it's not there, maybe it could be. I like your ideas up there, but Laura. But anyway, I mean, so what everybody's looking for is a way to go from centralized to decentralized. What everybody's looking for is a way to go, let's say, like we say in this book, which has become actually a slogan for a couple of larger corporations, the local is the future. And then the big thing, which I think that Linköping might be, that's maybe why you got the award, because it could be like a very perfect example of where you actually get the local industry, because you have those, the local university structure, because you have that, and the municipality, so you get the whole ecosystem actually working together. And what I'm curious about is if you go to Laura and the, if I'm allowed, to see how that beautiful initiative that you're doing, how you can connect that to knowledge structures, to actually implement a larger change, because what we're looking for and what's needed, and that is, if you go to where the real money is too, they need that. So that's why I think there's a huge responsibility on the new European Bauhaus to actually make that change, which makes you have to work on how do we make the civil servants less power and more tools, more enablers. How do we make those different changes to make a more efficient system where you can also get the creatives to actually do things and not just be part of a big mess.
Laura, do you want to respond to that very quickly?
I'm not sure. No, indeed. I mean, I think that when we see innovation, especially in the very small local level, and we have seen it. I mean, we have many examples in the European Bauhaus, but a lot of times, at the end for the development at the local level, this part that it was mentioned before of looking at what is happening inside and working across the different departments in a same municipality, and then starting to work also with the context around you. So the stakeholders, the knowledge providers, the more regional actors is essential, and we always see that, and that this ecosystemic regional innovation at the end it happens when this is there, and then that's a key part of the European Bauhaus, of the principles of how to work, and we were talking before with, I mean, Andrew was saying where are the links with sustainable urban development. They are clear because we work on the very principles of multi-level governance and cross-sectoral integration and stakeholder and big partnerships, and this is the way I think to go and to try to create those dialogues in the project. So I think that is inside the whole principle of the European Bauhaus.
Right. I know. Lena, you want to come on this very quickly. I'm just going to acknowledge Sheila, who is in the room and in the next panel. And I thought this might happen with back-to-back panels, that panelists from the next session might want to contribute to this session.
Sheila also has a lot to say about
Sheila,
this.
absolutely. This is why I'm mentioning it. Sheila absolutely has something to say on this. But Lena, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, because I just wanted to say one more thing that I think is really important, and where you have such a point with the local being the future. And it's also when you have the small villages or the small cities, we are very well connected, individual to individual. And because of this, we can build like the trusted networks because we know each other. And it's not only me as a manager knowing a manager in the university or in the municipality or in a business, but it's my colleagues, my partners knowing their colleagues and their partners, and so the network grows. And I think, like I would say, like the village is almost like a startup. Linköping is like a scale up, and then we have like the mega cities being the corporates, and they get very slow. You are the fast ones. We are somewhere in the middle, because there's more to coordinate and more to take into account. But it's in the small local communities that things can really move forward fast.
Absolutely. I am going to bring in Sheila very quickly. Max, would you mind bringing Sheila onto the screen as well? I know this will put us on the screen too, but I just wanted to say hello to Sheila and acknowledge her, because I know you'll have something to say about this, but we're going to bring you back for the next panel too. Sheila, you were going to say something very quickly.
Well, first of all, it's music to my ears that people living in Europe have begun to see that the local reality is the basis of producing new global knowledge. I think that the past 2 centuries have been too much of global leading the local, and therefore disempowering local communities to innovate, to inform, to produce new things that work for them, that then get aggregated to produce the new global. So I think that technology, science, better communication, better legitimacy for the amazing innovations that localities can produce have begun to challenge this sort of global systems theory based solutions for everybody all the time, everywhere concept that has always been a threat to local innovation, local knowledge, local solutions, which have become very critical for those communities that are increasingly getting disenfranchised. So their voice is lost in the legitimacy of what is good globally. And therefore, our campaigns are that many locals now have to produce the new global, and that informality is the new normal. Those are our slogans.
Fantastic. We're going to talk a lot more about that, Sheila, in the next session. Jan, you just wanted to come very quickly back on what Lena was saying, and then I'm going to come to Michaela.
No, I think one thing that one has to stress is the way of how you set up a project. And I mean, it's very easy to say that in the village everybody's like happy and they're talking to each other. It's just.
I live in a village, Jan. I know it's not like that.
It's just harmony, but it's not, because people tend to be taken by all kinds of other things in life, and the way we are organizing, at least the Swedish system that I know really well. But I think in Europe, as a standard, is that the money is driven in a very strange way. So you never get the money to set up a structure. And if you want to drive like a real local democracy and engage people, you need to set up that structure, and then set up that structure in order to see how do we want to build our houses. And then get the construction industry to do that, and to also invest in not just their ordinary houses, because they are destroying the planet, but in something else, and make them happy with that, and make them earn money from it. And the same goes for the food industry, and so on and so forth. So from the local set up right, you make money in different ways, but in exactly that, in a different way from today. And this needs a thorough and extreme leadership from Brussels. I think I mean, that's really what this should be all about, because you have to turn the system around. Otherwise, it's just, money for nothing.
So I understand that the local is the future. I'm sold on this idea. I understand that small is beautiful, and that we need to look locally at local instances of what we can actually achieve. But at the same time, we're not talking about regional warming. We're not talking about microdemics. We're talking about massive global problems that need to be addressed. So, I mean, I know that the saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But how do we scale these small size things in small areas to something that can have an impact at a European level or globally, that can start to address some of these grand challenges that we face?
So is that for me?
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
Because 2 years ago when we sat down, so it was Thomas Wobben from the Committee of the Regions and myself, we sat down together to create this concept. And the thing that I drew for him was this sketch where there were these sparks that are coming from the small places, from precisely the communities you have just described, that were concatenated to scale. And the main concept, and this is what Laura has been alluding to, is that you start with this small injection of funding that incentivizes more of this really positive change. You then join them, as Laura has mentioned, and maybe I don't know how many of you have picked up on this, you join them with these new kinds of a combination of private and public funding mechanism that can bridge the gap between this initial spark, a bit like in a startup. A startup can have a really, really good idea, and then nobody wants to invest in at early stages because it's too risky. You need to go. You need to have a bridge to where you can get to a proof of concept. And then you have to have you have like a few chasms, as they call it, where you need to cross a bridge or cross a gap, a funding gap, because only at a certain point can you go into venture rounds. And the same goes with public funding. You need to scale to a certain level that is provable in order for you to be able to attract a larger fund. So I drew this sketch for him where I was going from the sparks that we now incentivize. Then they get picked up by regional funding at that level, and Committee of the Regions was not the only one. The Committee of the Regions doesn't hold the funds. It was the regional programs. So it was cohesion funds and the whole of the Interreg, all of these programs. We all came together in a meeting. I coordinated a meeting with everybody, and they've never done that before. It was 2 years ago in March. Never done that before. So everybody came in the same room because actually they realized how valuable this could be if you did that. And you pick up with the regional funds the successful initiatives, or combination of private and public. And then when they scale, I already had like the European Innovation Council say, we will pick that up. Because at that point we have a proof of concept. So this is a route to scaling the ideas up. This is not about building a village into a city. That's not our ambition in the slightest. And you do that, and we can come back to that because I know that Lena wants to say something about this, through capacity building. And this is where we want the models. This is why we got Jan to write his model down so we can take it to people. That we want to scoop all of the models that have been developed by the NEB lighthouses so we can take them. But
We
please,
all,
Lena,
sorry,
I
we
can
all,
see
we
that
all
Lena-
have we all have a lot to say on this. I want to bring Lena in now,
Yeah.
but I also want to frame this slightly on how the best practices of Linköping that have led you to this position of European Capital of Culture can be scaled as well.
Wonderful. But I just wanted to add to what Michaela is saying, because I been working on a project for 2 years that is called the regional flagships. And I think this is very burdening to what you are working on, because we have taken a systemic approach, but on a regional and local level,
That's exactly right.
to try to take the elephant down to the pieces. But also understanding what you were talking about, the local, the regional, the national and international governance of how we can move things forward. Because it's really important to understand, do we need to change a national policy in order to get something going on a regional or local level? So you cannot only have the incentives to scale, but sometimes the policy making is also really important to take into account. So sorry, that was not the answer to your question, but it was.
It was not, but it is something that we can absolutely talk more about. Jan.
No, I think we're moving forward. We're getting somewhere. And I just want to add, I mean, when I did Duved, it was after doing the innovation program for the USA at the World's Fair in Milan. And so we were accelerating 10 new companies, 10 startups within food development. And I realized that they were super good, but they lacked something very specific, a context. Somewhere where they could test their ideas with others, because otherwise you don't have a food system. So that's really what we created in Duved. And I think that's something that actually could be a very good starting point for the entire new European Bauhaus, that you create contexts where you can apply all these new ideas that are out there. And we have all the solutions. You just need to focus them and make them workable. And then we have a model. Choof.
So we should put that on the cover. Michaela, last question for you.
But you also wanted Lena to say a little bit about the best practice. Sorry, just remembered your question.
I did, but she chose not to answer it. I was moving on.
She had another
politely.
important thing to say.
I can
please
take it
go
very
ahead.
quickly,
Sure.
but to mention just something about the work that we have done on climate change, where I think the cities are really important platforms. We have organized 2 new city districts where we work a lot with the infrastructure on how to govern everything from lighting to garbage to infrastructure when it comes to energy to fiber to everything. And in one of them, called Vallastaden, we have put everything in the ground. So you have big tunnels and you can move under. And this has brought a lot of international delegations to come to Linköping and look at how we've done this, to not have anything on ground. And we have total car-free zones in this city district. In the other one, it's called Ebbe Park. We have gone further and worked and tried working with circular models. We have tried to work with all the construction being transportation fossil free. And we use the city district also as a test bed for new climate innovations, where the city gives very, very little funding. It's like 2,000 euros. It's very little funding. But where the new innovation get a chance to be exposed to the world. And we talk a lot about it, we market it a lot, and it's being implemented into the city district. So that are 2 examples.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Michaela, I'm going to come to you. This is the last thing that we're going to talk about, but it's everything. It's DUVED. It's 100 labs for 100 regions. It's the lighthouses. It's the NEB labs. NEB labs. It's what we're doing here at MTF Labs. It's DigiNEB, the labs at CERN. All of these things are feeding into what is now becoming this handbook for regional ecosystemic innovation. We're folding these things in and trying to get these best practices. Where are we at, and what happens next?
Yeah, we're going to have to finalize it at some point. The problem we have is that the more we think that we've now got everything, and then something is published. And then it's a huge document from the European Commission. Like Laura is joining us from the Joint Research Center. They're publishing also phenomenal things there, and you should actually pay more attention to what's coming out of that. For example, the sort of new ways of funding initiatives. They are really rethinking some of these economic models or traditional ways. And of course, we come up with this important document, gets published, and we're like, wait, now we have to process this one and make sure that we are reflecting the community effort, because it's not. Jan is an amazing curator, and he has literally been hands-on and put things together. And these are the people we want to get. We want to get their knowledge for. Want to transfer it for capacity building with smaller municipalities, so they can see the tools that are available to them. But we want to collect all of them if we can, and of course the more we talk to people, the more we discover that there are more. So we will have to have a cutoff point, but at the moment everybody is warmly invited who hasn't interacted with us on this point and who have been doing hands-on collaborations and experiments in neighborhoods in Europe through all these funded initiatives, to give us their best. Please submit your best practice so you can be part of this compendium. We've had a commitment from the Committee of the Regions that they will disseminate this throughout the European regions and hand this over to all of the municipalities so that they can build competence in this area.
Fantastic. And with that, I think we're going to have to give a round of applause to our contributors, Laura, Lena, Jan, Michaela. Thank you very much for joining us.